reporting from Washington. So we may be getting closer to the bottom of that UPS charter plane that unloaded 30 busloads of people at night at the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania Regional Airport. This was broadcast as Minute Memo number 201. Our fearless commentators provided some great information. It turns out that UPS has converted planes for passengers as charters. There are several articles on this if you do a search on it. Ed said that he heard an interview with a commercial pilot last year who refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement that allowed him to break FAA regulations but lost his job in his refusal. He was to fly refugees in from some Middle East country into JFK in the middle of the night, bypassing security. A person named Only Please Stay Tuned alerted me that this could be the Pennsylvania Refugee Resettlement Program. Seems to be a very quiet, government-funded organization. Well, as it turns out, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie revealed last week on Fox that the Obama administration has been bringing in refugees by plane for quite a while.
No Syrian refugees in the Garden State. Why?
Because I don't trust this president and his Homeland Security Department or State Department to vet these folks. I just don't.
What if they send you the names of people that they would like to move into Jersey, and you had the state troopers and the intelligence apparatus you have vet them? Would that be acceptable?
Not sufficient, because even the FBI director says with their database, his FBI director, Jim Comey, said, we don't have the data on these folks to be able to do the right kind of background checks.
But you would assume that 10,000 refugees, which is just a pittance of what there are, okay, the people that would come to the United States would be the people that have passports and IDs and fingerprint checks and all of this.
They don't even communicate to us. We know that they've been placing refugees in states, including ours, without even communicating to us.
Well, let me stop you here. So you have refugees from around the world in New Jersey that you don't even know about?
Correct.
Is that right?
The administration places them directly with non-governmental organizations, and they do not even give the administration in the state the courtesy of the information.
Give me an example of that. Do you have
we have about 75 Syrian refugees that have come in since January into New Jersey that we were never advised about, ever.
And where are they now?
Well, now we're trying to find them throughout by going to the non-governmental organizations,
like Catholic Charities?
Like Catholic Charities and others who place them, but the administration places them directly through those organizations.
And the Catholic Charities and the other charities, they're not obligated to tell you that they're not doing it?
They're not.
So they just show up, these people?
And I wrote to them, I said, you don't even show us the courtesy of telling us that you're going to put people into our states, and you're doing it already anyway.
But will these refugees ever make TV news? No way. Middle of the night, landing at rotating small regional airports, they quickly jump on common charter buses. TV cameras will never be there. And just look at the numbers. Everyone is getting all excited about Obama saying he would bring in 10,000 refugees from Syria. In the first 5 years of the Obama presidency, the U.S. gave out green cards to over 680,000 immigrants from predominantly Muslim countries. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, in recent years, 100,000 new Muslim immigrants are brought into the United States each and every year, and it's growing at a rate of about 10% per year. So this battle in the press about whether or not to reject the president's plan to bring in 10,000 more is nothing but a distraction. The truth is that in the last 5 years, we have admitted more Muslims into the United States already than the entire Muslim population of Belgium, and that entire country was on lockdown from the Friday the 13th terrorist event in adjoining France. I'm still reporting from Washington. Good day.
It's been over 7 years since a church group from another state brought a couple hundred refugees to the rural county where I live. I wanted to know, how could they do this? What was the governmental process that allowed the resettlement of refugees to a county ill-prepared to assimilate them? Employment opportunities were scarce. The health department was not familiar with illnesses and mental health problems of people who came from parts of the third world. The school system was not prepared to teach large numbers of students who didn't speak English, and subsidized housing was scarce. I wanted to know who gave permission for what amounted to a dropping off of needy people in our county seat. So I began my research and posted everything I learned to a blog, Refugee Resettlement Watch, so that others might know what I learned about a federal program that is 35 years old this year. In summary, I discovered that the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees was choosing most of our refugees. It's under the influence of a powerful Muslim supremacist group called the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Not surprisingly, a large number of U.S.-bound refugees are coming from countries with large numbers of people who hate us, including Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and soon from Syria, just to name a few. The U.S. State Department then distributes the refugees to 9 major federal contractors, 6 of which are so-called religious charities, but all are largely funded from the U.S. Treasury. They're not passing the plate on Sundays for the $1 billion price tag for the resettlement. And that figure does not include the extensive welfare benefits refugees receive. The refugees are then sent to over 190 cities and towns in the U.S. where the 9 major contractors support 350 subcontractors. The refugees receive help from the subcontractor for up to 6 months, and the subcontractor then submits paperwork to admit the relatives of the first group. As the years have passed, I've become increasingly alarmed by the percentage of problematic Muslim refugees admitted and distributed around the U.S. through this program. By the way, the Refugee Resettlement Program is not the only one used for legally admitting Muslims, but it is one of the most important. Many are forming cities within cities. Perhaps you know one where you live, where mosques are being built to consolidate, train, and promote a growing American Muslim population and its Islamic supremacist doctrine called Sharia. This process of Muslim colonization is called the Hijra. Muhammad told his followers to migrate and spread Islam in order to dominate all the lands of the world. He said they were obliged to do so, and that's exactly what they are doing now with the help and support of the UN, the U.S. State Department, and the Christian and Jewish groups assigned to seed them throughout the country. Your tax dollars pay for it all. I've written this little book, Refugee Resettlement and the Hijra to America, so that you will know what is happening to us and what we can do about it. We only need to look to a troubled Europe to see the path ahead for America if we can't stop this migration, and stop it soon. There's no reason on earth that we should have brought over 100,000 Somalis and another 100,000 Iraqi Muslims to America. Soon we will be resettling Syrian Muslims in large numbers. The UN at the moment has over 10,000 in a pipeline destined for our towns. The FBI told Congress recently that they cannot be properly screened. If you don't help counter the Hijra, we are, in my opinion, doomed. Over time, this migration will be more devastating to your children and grandchildren and to our country than any terrorist attack could ever be. Learn more at Refugee Resettlement Watch and SecureFreedom.org.
Fraud is found at all stages, not just during the UN selection process, and there have been some spectacular fraudulent criminal operations at the UN level. It's rampant in the distribution of local, state, and federal grant services, providing a continual feed of stories about corruption for local news outlets wherever these NGOs operate. The program began as a public-private initiative, but public money has driven private money completely out, nowhere more evident than in the use of welfare, a cost that is never mentioned when the program is discussed or when its costs are quoted in the media or by the U.S. government. Basically, welfare is turned the program into a global magnet. That's not news. We've known that for about 20 years. We know that refugees that have arrived in the last 5 years, the only studies that are available study those that have arrived in the last 5 years, are using all programs at roughly 4 to 5 times what the average American uses them. Again, that's not news. What may be news may not be fully appreciated is the extent to which the refugee NGOs are providing ready-made constituencies for galloping federal grant programs and initiatives such as the Faith-Based Initiative, Violence Against Women Act programs, marriage support, and so on and so forth. Yeah, basically, as we've seen before, refugee organizations become whatever they need to become in order to qualify for a grant. Also consider welfare and the aggressive mosque planting which accompanies Muslim immigration. Muslim immigration is to a large degree driven by the refugee program. I don't think we know exactly how large. I don't think it's most of it, but I think it might be one of the biggest single factor. And the mosque building, again, is a challenge not only because it represents a rejection of the assimilation model, but also because the mosques are largely built by foreign governments. Imagine this. We are concerned when a local government office presumes to post the 10 Commandments on a wall for passersby to see. But our national discussion of church-state relations has not even tiptoed up to the challenge of an American religious establishment supported by government, a foreign government, a Wahhabist fundamentalist government at that, acting within a host welfare state, that would be us, which is required to cover non-spiritual needs. And Washington doesn't mind. Moral hazard and magnet effect are stamped all over this program. The U.S. recognizes that distortions can result even in foreign affairs from this generous program. Again, quoting from the report I started out with, the magnet effect or pull factor forms an increasingly pervasive worry for host countries and sometimes for the UN and thinking about resettlement initiatives. Those parties worry that providing a resettlement option to the West will interfere with pursuit of other durable solutions, such as integration into the local economy or voluntary return of refugee groups. This magnet effect has caused traditional charities to shift away from traditional programs towards the more profitable refugee program. As long as there are incentives like this built into the program, it will keep going, especially as refugees and other immigrants enter the contracting business. An assessment of this program is long overdue, and for that to begin, we must understand how it works and lift the curtain of myth and misunderstanding, which has protected it from open discussion. Thank you.
One of the examples I've watched and witnessed has been the migrant invasion that has been very much coordinated, paid for, enabled by Western governments. And they use a vehicle called NGOs, non-governmental organizations, charities, which we've heard a lot about in recent weeks. Those NGOs, to me, are very much governments at work. And the replacement of white conservative Christians in particular is very clear to observe. I spent a summer going from Libya to Sicily to southern Italy with the migrant trail. We're told that these migrants are on terribly small boats, that they're putting their lives at risk, young women and children fleeing for their lives from Libya. What I actually found was a mafia-controlled rig of people that small boats, small little dinghies, the ones you see in the media with small children being picked off them, but there's no children to be found. It's all young men of fighting age who've managed to elbow their way to the front, who have the funds to be able to do that and endure Libya. A small tugboat tugs the small dinghy out of Libyan waters into the Med, and then the NGO boats are dispatched to go and rescue those guys on that rig. And those NGO boats, like Save the Children and others, are dispatched on a certain day, coordinated by time, and work as a ferry service across the Med. That is being supported by huge funds at €45 a head per man that arrives on the shores of Italy, and they're given accommodation and they are paid. And now the hotels in southern Italy, of course, it's much more lucrative to fill your hotel with migrants at €45 a day than it is to try and seek the tourist dollar. And so hotels in southern Italy are full of migrants paid €45 a day. And when you ask anyone, where's this coming from? Where's it coming? It's always Rome. All roads lead to Rome when it comes to human trafficking across the Med. That's a curious thing in itself.